As you may know, the popular show Ed, Edd, and Eddy had been running for a long time. However, between October 7th, 2003 and October 21st, 2003, episode 34 was accidentally released 1 week before it was scheduled to. It was also known to be some around office and primarily writer had been sick with the flu. And instead of going on to make episode 34, the show was supposed to replay episode 1 at 5 a.m. Eastern. People have reported seeing a very disturbing new episode premiering on Cartoon Network. Some children were uncomfortable enough to see it. Apparently, the quality of the episode was mediocre, and when it held to the regular standards, animation was choppy. The sound was constricted and very muffled. Reports of a line running up and down, similar to a crappy VHS tape that we've received. Scenery was also described as overwhelmingly dark and depressing, without changing props or other background objects stormy looking. Characters also behaved oddly. Instead of the normal goofy, hijinks-inspired personalities, viewers were combined with a seemed of extremely agitated, gradually hateful towards each other, and constantly about to begin sobbing after the lines. The protagonist also had a very bad lisp. No one knew why, but he only spoke with a sexual tone, and that fervor bothered the viewers. I was one of those viewers. The episode began with Eddy walking down the street to meet Ed, and I noticed that Ed was missing. There was an irregular shot at an angle coming from an inside of the two showing in walking towards the viewers. He, Eddy, was wearing an angry look, like he does when something goes wrong. His eyes were red and around the iris. Ed then looked absolutely forlorn and practically dragged behind Eddy, tears in his eyes, to which they were both lazy, looking in the opposite outwards directions. Kevin, the series antagonist, was riding his bike when he approached the Eds. Toward them, the shot of them became blurry, and now low moans were heard coming from Eddy before Kevin hit him, to which it never happened because the screen went to black. The screen then snapped back to Kevin again and headed towards Eddy. The viewers was so blurry at the time that all I saw was a green blob headed towards a yellow one. Again, the low moan, only this time it could be sounded like the microphone was broken, and with loud static came, greatly overshadowing the moan. The claymation sequence of Double Ed sleeping Eddy's bed came up. Honestly, it should have been just the abruptness, but then I jumped back and shivered, waking up and getting out of bed. He moved oddly around the circular room, with a very fast pitter-patter of footsteps being the audio. The steps sounds were very clear as I was shown a bird's eye view of him scampering around the room. There was no visible doors. Ed began screeching, sound like a fisher cat, as he moved wildly around the cell of a room, faster and faster, until the screen began blurring again. The purple room's door shallowing a now orange blur. An extreme close-up of Eddy's front door sat in absolute silence for a maddeningly long time. At least 2 minutes of dead silence and a door. Next we see Jimmy and Sarah at the doctor, for some time probably oral. Jimmy had obstructed view by having a hanging lamp, and crying loudly with Sarah trying to comfort him. This unusually warm faction. "It hurts, Sarah. It hurts." Suddenly the door to the room smashed open. A new character, a dentist. His face wasn't shown because he was tall enough to be out of the shot. Sarah was escorted out of the room. Jimmy was shown getting his headgear on mangled. The front bent was upward, stretching his lip very high and tearing proportions. The front of his gums were trickling blood. His teeth were missing, and the disturbing part was that he lost both of his arms and legs beforehand, apparently. He sat in a paralytic, and I almost cried as I came to the conclusion that the others had beaten him up and bended his headgear. The camera then stayed on the mangled face for a few seconds, as the picture was silent than ever. Commercials came on. We were instantly assaulted with a very hairy Rolf in his darkened shed, fisting now Chow repeatedly. The visual loops and get blurry again as the scene pans out. Naz was reading the newspaper magazine on the couch when the quality was now perfect. Eddy was now alone, without Ed. The quality declines worse than before, and he is still walking. The sun is now lightening up the mood somewhat, and he smiles as he begins running. The door is shown again, and we see through Eddy's eyes as he reached out to open it. His house and his nice and bright, but had a very badly played violin blaring. The only audio in this scene only makes his way through the house. Eddy opens the door to his room. Johnny is now hiding under Naz's couch cushion as he crawls out on all fours in a comedic way. It pops out me from behind her. Obviously, I laugh because someone forgot to draw his eyes and I thought it was a mole. Suddenly, I stopped laughing when he started swallowing her head. Still in a cartoonish fashion, of course. But this was different. He and she still played like that until she started kicking and struggling. Johnny had held her like this until she went limp. Zoom in on his face and revealed a very small human eyes. Double Ed was lying on Eddy's floor, no longer in claymation. The camera showed Eddy's house for the remainder of the episode, about 3 minutes, and the next program began on the spot.